Let's think about hyperlinking and web navigation. When you're online, it's a lot easier to get lost on the web than it is in a book. But at the same time, when you're online, there's so many places you can go. You're not confined to that book, right? You can really get anywhere you want. So this creates challenges, also opportunities for writers who are doing work online. How do we help people kind of get through our text without getting lost? Well, let's look at some things we can do. One thing we've seen here is that subheadings help readers navigate a single text, right? When you look at this thing, all you have to do is look at it, and it looks like, okay, here's some background, right? Evolutionary stuff. Looks like then we get into how there's more options, and then the social media thing, right? The language is short and concise. The subheading is easy to read because it's, say, for instance, all caps in a bigger font or in a different color. But what works really well is when we pair the subheading with the image, and then you can see the logical division of ideas. In another module on reader engagement, we'll see just how important it is to show people what they're getting into once they land on your text. But what if you're a writer who has more than one text? Then you need a home page. Okay, here we see home pages for Scientific American and BuzzFeed, and you can see how there's lots of different things that you can read on the Scientific American website, or lots of different things that you can read on the BuzzFeed site. But these home pages tell you more than what you can read. Even if you're not familiar with Scientific American or BuzzFeed, if you just look at the homepage, you get a sense of what they're kind of all about. Like, take a look at this one. This kind of seems like pop culture and politics. It seems kind of like lighthearted and chatty, very opinionated. This just kind of seems more kind of journalistic and scientific in comparison, right? And that's reflected in not just the language, but the look and feel of the site. I mean, here you get LOL, and you don't get that on Scientific American, now do you? Let's see some examples of this here in R4B, and look at how a good homepage can tell readers really a few things: what the site is all about, like the theme, but also things like the style, or maybe even something about who the authors and creators are, in addition to what else is on the site. So I mean, here we see an R4B student's homepage, and you get a lot here. There's clearly some sort of kind of theme of well, I mean, we know it's about evolutionary psychology, but the picture helps set the scene. There's actually a slideshow going on here with a few pictures, so it seems like there's some kind of interaction between modern humans and our more primitive ancestors. Right, but we get a sense of the style too. The language here is direct and personal. Take a look into the theory, and then there's something about this image that's kind of warm and engaging. This isn't quite Scientific American, right? It's not BuzzFeed either. And in fact, if you look at some of the text, you'll see that this student is kind of going for that sort of middle ground tone and style. Take a look at another piece here. The writer, kind of welcomes us to the site and tells us a little something about herself. That gives readers a context for, what they're going to get and why the site exists in the first place. It's not like finding an essay in a box in the middle of the woods. You get, here we see little links to some of the other texts. You can do these up here in little tabs. This writer has a particularly clear and interesting homepage design. You can click on any of these little tiles and go to another text, but you'll see here the title of the text and also a little subheading. So now we know, the topic. This is kind of about soulmates today, but also we get a sense of main idea. Like, if you have too many options, that might be bad, right? Really, everything that you're going to get from the homepage. This really engages readers and helps them know what they want to click on. All right. Now, we can also help readers not just find the things we wrote, but our sources and other things on the web. And this is where hyperlinking comes in. If you can click on a link, and that link can take you straight to the source, right? And once readers get to the source, they can find everything they want, who wrote it, the date, whatever, the whole thing. Hyperlinking also unclutters sentences. Look at how we've managed to strip out this parenthetical thing that was interrupting an otherwise, nice flowing sentence. And they're easy to use once you get used to them, right? So for instance, for those of us on Word who are using Word, we can simply go up to, insert, hyperlink, and then we can just paste in anything we want to go to. For instance, well, here's an article I found about hyperlinking on Wikipedia, right? Well, I can just paste it right in there. And now, look, I've created a hyperlink. You can do this in things like email, right? This article on hyperlinking. See this little link thing? You know, you can do this really just about anywhere here. You know, here's how you do it on B courses, right? There's the little link thing. All right. You know, I encourage you to try some of this stuff. Even though hyperlinking is easy to use, as we just saw, and it's good for readers too, we don't really see it much in academia. You know, instead we're asked to use things like APA or MLA. This is unfortunate because, you know, APA, MLA, they're outdated. They're from the age of typewriters and libraries as physical buildings. That's why you double space in APA, so your teacher can write in red ink between the sentences, one that you print out on your typewriter. You know, the reason that we put author's last name first and then year of publication in an APA citation is because when you go to the library, the books are alphabetized by author's last name, right? You know, but in the modern world, people don't really do that anymore. You know, most reading and writing is done online. You know, that's probably true for you, and it's ever more so true, you know, as we kind of go increasingly virtual and remote. You know, but here's the thing: you can't expect change to come from within, right? You know, a lot of professors are, you know, old school. They're used to APA. That's what they had to do, and they have this kind of mindset of like, well, you kind of have to do it too. Publishers are, you know, they're kind of broadly resisting the whole idea of, you know, people reading online freely to begin with, and they're kind of sticking to their guns as well. So, you know, really, you know, students have to kind of lead this change, believe it or not. You know, it's on you guys. And so, you know, I encourage you all to just ask instructors like, hey, can I hyperlink? And to remind them of this last point, that hyperlinking can do anything that APA format can. First of all, you know, just about any, you know, published research can be found in some sort of digital library database. All right. If they insist on, you know, oh, I need to know author name, publication date right away, well, you can add a screen tip. See this little thing that pops up? This is a screen tip. So here's how you do that. You know, you go to hyperlinks. You know, you're going to insert your hyperlink, and see this little thing that pops up here, screen tip. And then you can add, you know, whatever it is. Do that. Okay. And then finally, if for those rare things that you just can't find online, you can't find an e-reader of or whatever, then here's how you cite it. You go to the Library of Congress, all right? And then within the Library of Congress, you do a search for whatever that book is, like Ansari Modern Romance, all right? And then, you know, you find the thing, all right? And then here, you just link to this, okay? And then people can find, you know, whatever they need to know about it, all right? Remind instructors of this, and oftentimes what happens is once people try hyperlinking and they get used to it, they realize that they like it much better. All right. That said, hyperlinking is, you know, it's still relatively a new form of citation, and you know we have to get used to it, kind of like this journalist does. Let's take a look at some examples from R4B student writing and think about, you know, what's effective here. All right. Well, one thing we can do is we can embed hyperlinks, right? You know, we can put them within sentences rather than just blowing up sentences with big long links like this one, right? You know, same here. Why don't we, you know, we could just embed this somewhere. Like for instance, why don't we embed this right here? You know, image credit. You know, people want to get to the link, they can just click on that. All right. You know, on that same note, we don't need to do this stuff, right? We could, you know, if we absolutely have to mention Dury Yappa Harrison here, we could add a screen tip, right? But why not just, you know, why not just embed it somewhere in the sentence, right? Same thing here, you know. But that's the challenge, right? Where in the sentence should I put the reference to the link when the link is full of information that comes from the source? You know, some students respond by, you know, making these hyperlinks that kind of take up entire sentences, but that is too much, right? You know, that just visually that doesn't look that great, and it doesn't help readers a whole lot either, you know. But the converse of this is they put it on like one or two words that don't really capture, you know, what the source was all about, right? So, you know, here's the trick. You try to find a word or phrase in the sentence that's short but sums up what the source is all about. So for example, take a look here. If you think about this source, take a look at the passage. This is really about the process of a smile, you know, like the stuff that happens. So what if the link was here? All right. This seems to be about conflict, right? You know, and what some researchers did, you know. So maybe this is about, you know, researches that compare the amount of conflict, right? You know, take a look at here. Isn't this about, you know, maybe an experiment, right? I mean, it's not like if you click on this, you go to like scientist.com, right? You know, or like you're gonna, you know, I don't know, you know, this isn't like a history website, right? You know, let's go to the past. That's not where the link takes you, you know? So, you know, this might be, you know, like something like, you know, maybe this is about how the world is a constant dating game with an infinite amount of options, you know? Maybe that's what you're gonna learn about. Here's really what the, you know, the guideline for these things. We have to kind of, you know, think about places to put them that kind of show readers, you know, what the source is all about. So one good option is on a reporting phrase, something like according to Ansari, as Miller and Kanazawa argue, right? Because if you click on the link, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get to Ansari and hear what he has to say, or what you're going to see what Miller and Kanazawa argue, right? That's what the source is all about, you know? If the source is all about how people smile when frustrated, then that's a good place to put the link. You know, if it's about how you can better detect fake smiles, that's a good place to put the link, right? Just try to use the hyperlink to show what the original source is all about. This is super useful to readers because then they get the summary of the source, and then they know if they want to learn more about how people smile when frustrated, they just know to click on the link. What does not work as well is placing it on a big long quote, you know, or on a complete sentence that's quite long, or just on some generic noun like scientists, or, you know, or you know, a generic verb that doesn't really show what the source is all about. All right, now let's see some more examples of R4B writing and think about where we would place the hyperlinks.